Hello, I'm joined by my friend Matthew Kelly, also known as Jim Moons, and what other nicknames do you go by?
It.
We're doing a movie review on the 2006 horror film When a Stranger Calls, which is a remake of the 1979 horror classic of the same name. And I'm doing this review because I just recently reviewed the original film and its 1993 sequel. This came out in 2006, which was sort of in the wake of that, horror remake boom of the early to mid-2000s. This was around the time you also got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, the Willard remake, the Dawn of the Dead remake, the remake of The Fog, the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, the Black Christmas remake, the Hitcher remake, and...
all fucking remakes.
Yeah, and they came... This came out sort of in the wake of all that.
Yeah.
Now this one was directed by Simon West, right?
Simon West.
Who also directed Con Air and directed one of the Expendables movies, right?
Yeah, he directed the second one.
So yeah, this was my first time seeing the movie last night. And again, I'm reviewing it because I reviewed the first two films of the When a Stranger Calls franchise. But you actually saw this in the theaters when it came out back in 2006.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And this movie really triggered him.
Yeah, it triggered me when we rewatched it. I only saw it once originally, the first time when I went on a date with this girl. We don't speak anymore, of course.
Okay.
I never saw her again after that movie.
Because of the movie.
Because of the movie. And yeah, I just everything when I rewatched it with you, I just remembered everything I just didn't like about it. It was just very it's just too, dumb and schlocky.
Yeah, it's a dumb movie, and it's very bland. It's honestly, we watched it last night, and I'm actually kind of struggling to remember certain things about the movie.
It's just, they got a name for, I just thought the movie sucked.
Alright.
They got a name, that's just CW, this is really the CW horror boom.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's not just the remakes around this time.
The cast of Jack and Bobby is in this movie, you know what I'm saying?
Well, no, what I'm trying to say is it wasn't just the remakes around this time, but a lot of horror films of the early 2000s, especially the ones that were geared towards teens, definitely had a CW feel to it. I'll say this, I've seen worse remakes than this, but to me this was just so bland and mediocre. And it also... a big thing with this one is, okay, if you watch the original When a Stranger Calls, and you didn't see that one yet, right?
No.
Okay, in the original film, all the shit of the stranger calling up the babysitter, that's literally only the first 20 minutes of the original film. The rest of that movie is about that character, that killer, being arrested, sent to a psychiatric hospital, and then years later he escapes, and the rest of the movie is actually this gritty crime drama about this detective trying to track this killer down, and a lot of it's also a character study on the killer. You get none of that in this. Basically, this movie just remakes the first 20 minutes of the original film, but expands it out to a fucking hour and a half.
Yeah, just bad.
So the plot of the movie is we follow a teenage girl named Jill Johnson, which was also the name of the protagonist from the original film. She's grounded for going over her minutes. When was the last time you heard that?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
And so... to make it up to her parents, she has to babysit for this ridiculously rich couple who live in this absurd house with a fucking... They have a koi pond right in the middle of the fucking house or something. And she's babysitting these two kids, and as the night goes on, she starts getting these really creepy phone calls, and... basically, at a certain point, she calls the police. They trace the calls, and the calls are coming from inside the house. The issue is, in this movie, we already know the killer's inside the house before the police even fucking trace the calls. Yeah. At least in the original film, that was supposed to be a huge fucking shock when you find out that the killer's inside the fucking house. Here it's yeah, we fucking knew that. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because everybody knows the original film. I'm saying that because it's literally in the movie, you get all these hints that, yeah, there's somebody in this house with her. So the film stars Camilla Belle as Jill Johnson. It also has Tessa Thompson in it. This was before she became, like...
she's in the Thor movies, right?
She's in the Thor movies. She's in Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, yeah, she is.
It also has Katie Cassidy, who is in a lot of these
all
horror...
of them.
Not all of them. She
almost
was in
all of them.
No, she was in the Black Christmas remake and the Nightmare.
Too.
Will you stop talking over me? She was in the Black Christmas remake and the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. It also has the fucking Clark Gregg, I think is the actor's name, who plays Jill's father in the movie. He would go on to play the character Phil from the early Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. And technically, the killer in the movie is played by two actors. Throughout most of the movie, we're just hearing his voice, and it's actually the voice of Lance Henriksen. I love Lance Henriksen. I think he's one of the greatest character actors of all time. I actually met him a few years ago. Nicest guy in the world. But I'll be honest, this movie, even though it's only his voice, this movie wastes fucking Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
And then when you see the face of the killer, he's played by, I think the actor's name is Tommy Flanagan or something. Yeah.
This whole movie is just like a bore. It's just like, like the first 20 minutes of in the house, it's just her walking around, looking around the house, and nothing really.
Yeah.
Minimal music here and there. But
the movie's just boring.
Just boring, and just, the acting is just kind of bad. It's just like, it's just not good. It's just really not good. The CW horror movies are just not for me.
Yeah.
This is not for me.
Yeah.
And it just feels like they're slapping, like, the original movies in the face. Like, yeah, I never want to see this movie again.
I'm sorry for subjecting it to you again.
It's alright.
Yeah.
Just a boring movie.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to say about this movie.
Except, it's just a bad remake. It's just, like, very poorly made. There's nothing really new in her.
And it looks like all the other remakes that were coming out, not just remakes, but just about every other horror movie that was coming out around this time, or at least the ones that were generally geared towards teens. This looks like all of them.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that was our review of the When a Stranger Calls remake.
Don't watch the movie. Don't see this. Stay away from this movie.
Then the next movie that I'll be reviewing for Horror Month is actually a movie I reviewed before, but I decided to re-review these movies. My next movie review will be on the original Friday the 13th.